So there has been recent talk about the Trump administration and other people that are looking at maybe doing away with the FICO score because of its monopoly over the industry of lending. And so in today's video, we're going to talk about that and what are some of the alternatives if they were to get rid of the FICO score. We're going to talk about that in today's video. If this is your first time joining me, my name is Starr, and on this channel, we talk personal and business finance. So if that's something that you're interested in, please consider being a subscriber. Make sure you guys are cutting on your notifications so you don't miss out on new content, and give this video a thumbs up. That way it gets pushed out to more viewers such as yourself. And guys, let me know in the comments, what do you think about if the FICO was to be, taken away, and what would be the alternatives in your opinion if they were to get rid of the FICO score? So let's go ahead and let's get into today's content. So this original plan to look into the practices of FICO, which is the Fair Isaac Corporation, came back around March or April of this year from Senator Josh Hawley. Okay, and so he had some points that he made in his argument, and I'm just going to go over like the five like major things that he said. I'm not going to read this whole article, but I will link this article in the description if you're interested in reading it. And so one of the main issues that he was saying was that FICO has a market monopoly, says that they control a staggering like 90% of the share business to business credit scoring market, a near monopoly amplified by government endorsement. And then he also said that they have a sweet deal with the government. Many government backed loans like FHA and VA mortgages require the use of FICO scores, effectively mandating its market dominance. All right. And he also says that there's repeated and steep price hikes. FICO has increased its per score fees for mortgage originations from $3.50 to $4.95, more than a 40% jump. Over the past few years, Hawley asserts that a community increase add up to like 500% total raise. Okay, and then he also says that this impacts on working Americans. According to Hawley, these costs increase don't just affect lenders, they get passed on to home borrowers, particularly those with lower incomes. That makes home ownership more expensive and less attainable. Also, he says that legal precedent history, antitrust concerns around FICO aren't new. Back in March 2020, the Department of Justice briefly opened an antitrust probe, which was closed in December of 2020. Meanwhile, at least 10 antitrust class action lawsuits between 2020 and 2023 remain active, with courts allowing them to proceed on the grounds that FICO may indeed be abusing its market power. So there has been these talks about, FICO not playing fair. And I'm gonna tell you, just from, me talking about credit on this channel and everything, is that FICO is not free. FICO at the end of the day is a business. And I talked about this in a video that I did in my Credit Ready program. And it's also on this channel. And I talked about how when you apply for credit, it doesn't matter if you're applying for a home loan, a personal loan, a car loan, or whatever type of loan, a credit card. Whenever they pull your credit score, whenever they request your credit score, a lender requests your credit score, they have to pay for that score. That score is not free. It's not free when you request for it. That's why you have to pay a monthly subscription if you get the Experian app or the MyFICO app or any of those apps that let you monitor your FICO scores, or like the MyFICO app. You could pay like $40 and get all your scores. Like you can, well, not all of them, but the majority of the scores that are being used, like your FICO 8, your mortgage scores 2, 4, and 5, your credit card scores, your auto scores. And so you have to pay for those scores, and the lenders do too. And it's nothing new that these amounts have been passed down to the consumer. They've always been passed down to consumer. Businesses are not in business to lose money. So anytime they have to pull something on your behalf, trust and believe that that is already factored into the cost of whatever it is that you're paying for, right? Or whatever it is that you are asking to borrow. So if you're buying a home, that's going to be factored into that home cost. If you buying a car, it's going to be factored into that car price. If you're if you're getting a personal loan, it's going to be calculated into that price. And if your credit score is low, say you are in the subprime category, then with a credit score that's, below a 620, then your credit costs even more, because they know that the banks, if they do decide to lend money to you, they know that they're going to get a lot of money because they could charge you more interest. To have a lower credit score, they're going to be able to get more money out of you. FICO's knows that they're going to be able to get more money out of you long term than whatever it costs for them to pull your credit score. So they're trying to, bank on that. But I will also say this too, that um, if FICO is the only one that is considered a monopoly, it's not their fault. And let me explain that. And the reason why it's not FICO's fault is because FICO is the one that's been around forever. FICO was invented in the 50s so that people had a way for them to be able to see if you were credit worthy. And so it's not like there's not other ways to do that, because Vantage came around in 2006. That is formed by the three major credit bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. They came together and made the Vantage score. And so the Vantage score is there, it's there. And I think it might have been in 2020 or 2021 or somewhere around in there, where Vantage 4.0 was approved by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to be used as a alternative score to be able to do mortgages, as well as FICO 10T or 10 or 10T, one of those two. So there are alternatives when it comes to the actual FICO score for your home mortgages. But here's the thing though, it costs banks to change their lending model. It costs them to change their lending model. It costs any type of financial institution that has to lend money, it costs them to change their model. And so it's not like, okay, when you got an iPhone, right, and you get a new iOS update, you get that iOS update for free, right? It tells you, okay, now we're going to iOS, you were at 17, now we're going to iOS 18, and you can choose to update it or not. Most of the time you want to, update it because it probably has some type of security patch in there that you want to make sure that you're not leaving your device vulnerable to somebody hacking in and stealing your information, right? So you get that for free. When it comes to these new scoring models like FICO 9, FICO 10, that's why you still got lenders that's using FICO 8, because it costs them to upgrade. It's not free for them to upgrade. It's not like, okay, FICO 10 and 10T, oh, that's just an upgrade. That's just an update. It's an upgrade, but it's a paid upgrade. It's not an update. It's not an update where you automatically get whatever, it might be a bug or something like that. It's not the same. And so it costs them in the thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. And so because FICO has always been in place, a lot of the banks, a lot of the lenders are not going to change that for customer, so that they have an alternative, because it's like, okay, they could implement Vantage and they could run Vantage or they could run FICO. But guess what? It's not free for them to run your credit report on Vantage either. These are businesses at the end of the day. FICO is a business. Vantage is a business that was created by the big three credit bureaus. The big three credit bureaus are a business. So everybody's getting charged. Everybody is trying to make money. Okay. And so the data that is fed into the FICO score is from the credit bureaus, because the credit bureaus are the ones that actually gets the data. They get the data from the lenders whenever you make an on-time payment, or whenever you take out a loan, you get an inquiry and all that kind of information. That data feeds into the FICO score and feeds into the Vantage score. So everybody's making money, and so I don't want it to seem like, okay, they got a monopoly. And when we think about monopoly, we thinking about, somebody just dominating industry. It's really not FICO's fault that they're dominating industry, considering that they were first. And you got to understand, Vantage has been around now going on 20 years. And so if lenders really wanted to use Vantage, they would have started. And you do have some credit unions and you do have some banks that may use Vantage, that may have given Vantage a chance. But at the end of the day, they want to make sure that they're getting the most accurate information. So, with that being said, I want to play something for you all that I found very interesting. So, now we're going to talk about alternative lending. So, if they were to get rid of the FICO score, what are the alternatives that they could do? So before I play this little bit of the snippet of this conversation that was being taken place by these two gentlemen, I want to put some context in there. So they're talking about alternative data, and we talk about alternative data. How will lenders, if they weren't going to use the FICO score, what other areas could they use to actually come up with a way to lend people that want to borrow money, right? And so this guy has raised a point, and I want you all to listen to this and see what you say. Leave me a comment in the comments about it, but I want you to see why they are looking into alternative data, not because FICO has a monopoly, but this is another reason why lenders may be looking at replacing the FICO score, or not looking at it as heavy, or a combination of both FICO and alternative data. Okay, so let's take a look at this together.
Yeah, I mean, fraud is a growing problem. It's largely, there's largely no consequences for the people committing fraud. And on the first party fraud side, it used to be like if you didn't pay back a loan, the consequences would be that your credit would be impaired for 7 years. Now there are kind of TikToks out there instructing people how they can, get a loan, not pay it back, and actually get that trade removed from the bureau. So I do think alternative data is going to just be a hugely important factor, especially like cash flow data that we were talking about before, right? They're not getting their, you know, checking account data removed, right? So finding other ways to just enrich that credit bureau data. The credit bureau data will always matter. It will always be important. But I think alternative data is going to play a big role on the fraud side. And then on the third party side, right, there's just better and better, there's people who just specialize in understanding synthetic fraud, right? And so it's useful to have a partner like that who's on, constantly keeping up with what's going on, researching what's happening, what are the fraudsters doing. They have people on staff that are actually going out there and kind of interacting, trying to stay on top of exactly what's going on, right? And so then they can help provide the most useful data to us, and we can integrate that into our ecosystem. So you just have to have a solution for all types of fraud. The fraudsters will test everyone, and you just do not want to be the easiest target out there, because they will find something and try to exploit it if they can.
That is more of their main concern, is fraud. If they were to get rid of the FICO score, and what he said, the FICO score is not going anywhere. Their main concern is fraud. How people are being able to get loans through their FICO scores and then not pay them, and then having trade lines removed because they're looking at a TikTok, or they're looking at a YouTube, or somebody on social media that's telling them how they can get a loan and not pay it back. And so they're trying to skirt around, okay, what can we do with alternative data to make sure that that doesn't happen? Okay, so they're trying to make sure that you're not able to game the FICO system, so that you're not able to manipulate the credit bureaus to look more credit worthy than you actually are. So, like he was saying, if you start looking into somebody's checking account and start looking at their ebbs and flow of their checking account, or their checking activity, so that means that they will actually start looking at how you handle your actual money. So now, like when you go to get a home loan, they want everything and some blood. So it's like they want your bank statements. They want to be able to see what's going in and out of your money. So that means that could start happening for all types of lending, and not just mortgages. See, because mortgages, they want your FICO scores, right? But they also want the alternative data. They also want to see your pay stubs. They also want to see your checking account information. They want to see tax returns. They want to see the overall way that you use your money and how your finances actually look, because the FICO score doesn't say what your finances look like. Okay, the FICO score just shows how well you are with paying back other people's money. But you could pay all your bills on time and still not have any money. That's like me. I told you guys in my in my transparency video, and I'll link it up there, that I've always paid my bills on time, but I had maxed out credit cards. I was only paying the minimum balance. And so I was robbing Peter to pay Paul. But because I was able to make the least the minimum balance on all of my accounts, they have no idea that I was struggling. Other than, okay, the FICO score, kicked in. And because I was over 30% utilization, because my cards was maxed out, it always kept my credit score in the low 600s. But at the same time, if I really needed to get a car loan like I did, I had bought my Jeep when my credit score was at its lowest. It didn't stop me. It made me have like a higher interest rate, but it didn't stop. Okay. And so having the overall picture when it comes to looking at your data to give you lending, this could be a thing. And I think people are like, well, they think this might be a good thing, but it won't be, because if they're looking at your rent payments, which that's another alternative data, they're looking at how you pay your rent. They're looking at some of those other things that they can factor in that Experian has started, where they can look at how you pay your utility bills and all those type of alternative data to try to give you money. Well, they can charge you any type of interest rate. There's no guardrails on that. But especially if you have a thin credit profile or you have not established credit, they can give you the highest interest rate then. And so it's not a good thing for people to think that, okay, let's get rid of the FICO score because they're a monopoly, they did it, da, 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 da. Well, it's going to make you pay more for money. It's going to make you pay more for money. That's what it's going to do. And the banks and the lenders, they know that. They know that. So the FICO score is really a good thing, especially if you nurture it and do the right thing about it, not committing fraud by, getting loans in your name and then not paying them back and, doing stuff like that and then trying to get them removed. You know, that's where they're going to start looking into doing other things to see if you're credit worthy. But again, if they don't have a base model to base your credit worthiness on, they can give you any interest rate that they want. And we already know that they're taking the guardrails completely off of the CFPB, as far as, them just gutting that agency completely, which were really, really hard, and going after these banks for not doing the right thing, going after these lenders and these loan sharks and all these type of things for not doing the right thing. And as soon as the Trump administration came in, they pretty much gutted that industry, that agency. And so now a lot of these places are going to get away with murder. They're going to get away with murder. And so I want you guys to not just think of the FICO score of this evil thing. It's more or less something that have a guidance and say, okay, this person has a good credit score. And if you do decide to lend to them, you need to give them the best interest rate, versus if they don't have a credit score at all, because we don't have any data but their checking account, their rent payments, they're reporting their utilities and that kind of thing. We can look at these things. So, but yeah, we can still charge them a 30% interest rate on a car loan, or we could charge them a 30% interest rate on a personal loan, because we don't have any, we don't know if they are actually going to pay their bills back. We know that they pay their rent on time. We know that they have direct deposit going into their checking account, but do we really know if they're going to pay their bills? So it's some of those things right there that the FICO score, and even the ones that may use the Vantage score, are going to use. So it is a good thing to have those type of guardrails, so that you're not paying more for credit than you actually should pay for credit. And if you do have a low credit score, then you're actually paying more for credit, because they love subprime buyers, because that's where they can really jack up the interest rate on you. They can really, really, get their money's worth, because they know a lot of interest is front loaded. It's right here at the front. You got to pay all that interest before you even get to the principal. And so they know they can make a lot of money off subprime lending. So that's why you want to have a really good FICO score, and even a really good Vantage scores for the lenders that do use it. Not that very many, but it's still available for people to use it, for lenders to use it if they want to incorporate those things into their business model. But again, it's very expensive for a lender, for a business that has been doing business for centuries or whatever, been doing it for ions, that they try to change their business model just because whoever think that FICO is a monopoly. Well, it was built into the system. It's built into the system. And so that they didn't want it that way, then it never should have been built that way, in my opinion. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. and let me know what you think about this topic. I really do want to hear from you all. And guys, again, if you're not a part of the Credit Ready program, please, guys, take a look, and by scanning the QR code, it's completely free. We are about to have our very first live, not our very first live session. This will be our second live session for this year. Actually, it's going to be tomorrow because this is Saturday. This video is going out today. And so if you guys want to be a part of our live session, it's going to go tomorrow, September the 21st. This is 2025. And so it'll be 5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And again, we will be having live sessions every month. So guys, make sure that you come on and lock in while it's still free, because it will be monetized starting January of 2026. All right, guys. So let me know what you think again in the comments. And I do appreciate all your love and support. And I will see you guys in the next video.